Hey guys, it's Luke here from Play Like a Jet Live. Thanks very much for continuing your support of U Stadium Hurricane Relief Live Marathon. As Zach just said, we've got a whole lot longer to go, so make sure you don't go anywhere and you tune in. Donations with that little link down the bottom of the screen. Make sure you're hitting that up constantly. And we got plenty to talk about today. I've got Clay, my partner from Play Like a Jet Live with U Stadium. He'll be here shortly. And we're going to talk about all the cuts for the New York Jets, some of the topical news around the AFC East. Obviously, New England made a big decision today with their roster and quarterback. So we're going to touch on all of that. Scott, he's going to come on as well. He's the master of Play Like a Jet. He has his podcast. Make sure you're listening to that as well. But it's been an interesting day for the Jets. There's been some trades. Some guys who I expected to make the 53 have been cut. So look forward to diving into that, all for a fantastic cause, supporting Hurricane Ida. Obviously, Louisiana and the whole of the Gulf region's been devastated again. We saw this over a decade ago in New Orleans. So our thoughts and our prayers are with everyone over in that area and affected by Hurricane Ida. So let's talk a little bit about the Jets. It's been a really interesting day. Chris Herndon was traded. No one actually knows what the compensation was for Chris Herndon yet, but he has been traded to the Minnesota Vikings. Irv Smith Jr. obviously down for the first part of the season, so the Jets decided to pull the trigger there. I don't think he was going to get cut. I think it was more an opportunity that they were handed draft capital, and Joe Douglas and his team couldn't knock that back. So that's what I believe in the Chris Herndon move. You also had Kenny Yeboah, who was the star of that third preseason game against the Philadelphia Eagles. He caught the long touchdown. He was let go as well. So the Jets tight end room is fairly weak, old, and bland right now. I'm sure I'll touch on that more once Clay gets here in 5 minutes or so. But that was definitely an interesting decision. You then had Vincent Smith being cut from the wide receiver room. I don't think that was unexpected, but I was kind of hoping he'd make the team over Braxton Berrios. Right now, Jeff Smith is also on the roster, who has been utilized in some of those short screens and in that Elijah Moore role while he's been on the shelf. So it will be interesting to see if the Jets do carry 7 wide receivers or if they're going to continue with 6 and Jeff Smith will be let go once we hit waivers and those kind of things. Some other slight surprises, Jimmy Murray, who I think I called Nick Murray, he got released. The interior offensive lineman. He spent some time with the ones in the Packers game after Dan Feeney went out. I thought he may scrape through considering Alex Lewis has retired after he had some off-field and personal issues he had to sort out. You had Cameron Clark go down. So the Jets have a very limited depth on the interior offensive line, and that's where I think the Jets are going to target with the waiver order. For those guys who aren't too familiar with how the waivers work, the Jets are picking number 2. Or not picking, they have the number 2 selection. So in other words, if a player passes through the waiver order and Jacksonville don't take him, the Jets can take as many players as they like there, as long as they can fit them on their 53, obviously. The order doesn't reset. The Jets will continue to be at number 2, so they can put it in for numerous players, and they can be awarded those players on waivers. So once again, here for the Hurricane Relief Live Marathon with U Stadium. Make sure you're donating. Make sure you're helping out any way you can. Jets fans, make sure you're supportive. I know we hear a lot about Bills fans and how good a job they do with Josh Allen and all the causes. So make sure the Gang Green does a good job supporting U Stadium and the Hurricane Ida relief. It's going to be an intriguing couple of days because, as I mentioned, the waiver order is going to bring in quite a lot of new talent. The Jets have probably one of the weakest bottom 5 to 10 spots on the roster. There's plenty of room for improvement here. And I think they're going to look at interior offensive line. They're going to look at quarterback. Nick Mullins sounds like he's going to sign on the practice squad of the Cleveland Browns, which is interesting. I thought he may be an option, but maybe the Jets really are rolling with Mike White, as was suggested by Jets Press and Ian Rappaport overnight. So not sure if there's going to be another move at the quarterback position. I still think Saleh is going to look to bring another edge in waivers if one he likes shakes free. And then the corner and safety positions. Ashton Davis was activated off the PUP list yesterday at practice, so it sounds like he will be close to go for the start of the season. But really, between he and Niesman, who's the safety 4, there's not a ton of talent. There's some names I like in the safety pool who I think the Jets can bring in through waivers. So that's exciting. We'll see if they can get some of those veteran players as well who don't pass through waivers but have the opportunity to sign straight away. They're players who have been in the league for 4+ years. So it's an intriguing time for the Jets. We're just under 2 weeks away from the regular season game against the Carolina Panthers, 1 p.m. Down in Carolina. So it's very exciting and can't wait to see how that unfolds. Once again, just letting you know, Clay will be here shortly, my co-host on Play Like a Jet Live. Scott will also be popping in. And there's a whole lot more coming in the next 6.5, 7 hours on the Hurricane Relief Live Marathon here with U Stadium. So make sure you're checking it out and make sure you're supporting everything that Nick and Frankie, Bree and Splash and everyone involved in U Stadium are doing. They do a fantastic job. It's a great cause. There's going to be signed memorabilia. I know there's a Cam Smith game-worn jersey. Cam Jordan game-worn jersey for the Saints. There's mini helmets from guys like Justin Fields. Make sure you're involved in the auctions and everything you can get and are supporting U Stadium and the victims of Hurricane Ida. New York Jets, guys, can't wait to see how this is going to unfold this year. There's going to be an interesting 4-game stretch to start. I was talking with a couple of my friends yesterday about the expectations for the Jets in the first 4 games of the season. You've got Carolina, you've got New England with the home opener in week 2. That's going to be Mac Jones now, so that's going to be an interesting battle between Mac Jones and Zach Wilson. You've then got a trip down to Denver, which is a really tough defense. And then the 4th week, you've got the Tennessee Titans, who offer a completely different opposition. They're terrific on offense. You've got obviously the 3 big guys offensively in Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, and Julio Jones, but defensively they're quite leaky. So there's going to be some different propositions for the Jets. It's going to be important if they're going to, first of all, go over their win total of 6, which I'd like to see considering I bet on that. But if they're going to be competitive this year, it's really important for the New York Jets. They win 1, if not 2 of those games. I think it's got to be that first week in Carolina. So it's going to be interesting. To answer your question, Henry, look, I think there are going to be some trades in the next couple of hours. We're going to touch on it more, but I think Zach Ertz is a name that's been bounced around Jets Twitter a lot. And that move for Chris Herndon, if they can flip that pick into Zach Ertz, giving up slightly more draft capital, that's a win for the Jets. I understand Herndon's younger, but he's also injury prone. He's had cases of the drops in his rookie year and in his 3rd year. So if they can get Zach Ertz, it's a huge upgrade over Daniel Brown, who's currently the 3rd tight end on the roster. So I definitely think there's another move to come at tight end, whether it's via trade or a waiver order. And there's definitely going to be more trades, maybe not just with the Jets, but throughout the league. Guys who appear that they're going to be cut, but teams down lower on the waiver order, they're going to panic. And then what happens is they ring up, Philadelphia and say, oh, well, if you're going to cut this guy, I'll give you a conditional 7th round pick that turns into a 6th, because if he hits waivers, well, then he's not going to clear all the way down to where I'm, sitting at 22nd on the waiver order. So there's definitely going to be more trades. As far as names to watch for the Jets, again, I think it's going to be corner, quarterback, maybe Nick Foles. It's obviously been bounced around as an idea for quite a long time now for the New York Jets. Do I like Hollister? Yeah, I think he's definitely an option. He looked pretty good in the preseason, and he can obviously do some things. So the Jets are weak at that position right now. And anytime you can bring in players who are somewhat talented, I think as fans, it's easy to forget that this was a 1-win or 2-win team last year. There's always room for improvement. Nick kind of alluded to it the other day, that this isn't a deep roster where you go, well, we don't really need too much else. If you can get a good player at tight end, corner, offensive line, you get it and you make that change, because even though you've invested time and effort into the guys that are already here, some of them don't have the most talent. At any time you can upgrade, I think it's going to be really important for the Jets. Another guy who got released at the tight end position was Bronson Kafusi, the Packers tight end, who done some nice things and earned the praise of Aaron Rodgers. You may have heard me already mention this. It was quite funny because in the press conference during the Jets week of practice, Aaron Rodgers was talking about, how much he thought Kafusi had grown and become an important part of that offense. And one of the reporters referenced how he once praised another receiver who was then traded the very next day, or cut the very next day, and signed with the Buffalo Bills. And now that's happened with Kafusi, with him being released after being praised by Aaron Rodgers. So I'm intrigued to see if that brings up a bit of reaction from Rodgers, who has been fairly petty over the last couple of months since he's come back to Green Bay. So that's something to watch as well. He's a former New York Jet. We've got Clay in the back room, guys. He's about to join us. We're going to jump into everything that's happened so far, some of the last predictions we'll make with the roster. And once again, please remember to donate with the link down below. The hurricane relief for Hurricane Ida with U Stadium. This is the live marathon. So we're excited to be here supporting an incredible cause. And make sure you do anything you can and everything you can to support the victims of Hurricane Ida. Without further ado, we're going to bring Clay in. We're going to jump into everything that's happened so far, some of the surprises. Clay, can you hear me? How you going, man?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's going on, Luke?
Some interesting moves this morning. I know you've been at work, so let's kind of break them down together, or break them down for everyone so far. Let's start with the wide receiver position. Right now, they're still carrying 7 wide receivers. Jeff Smith and Braxton Berrios both on the roster, but Vincent Smith was let go. Did that surprise you, and do you think there's another move to come there?
Yeah, I was a little surprised by Smith getting cut. I believe when we had DJ on, me and you both thought that Vincent Smith would be the 6th receiver. And actually, I did like my own little 53-man projection. I actually had him keeping Berrios and Vincent Smith, with Jeff Smith being the one cut. But I know they like him. He's been getting snaps with the first team, so I guess it's not all that surprising. I guess it's kind of like a crapshoot out of the 3 of them. They like him. I'm kind of curious to see if there is another move. I mean, Rich Cimini kind of hinted at it earlier today, last night for you. So, I'm not exactly sure, and I know I'm sure you've already hit on the Chris Herndon trade too. But has there been any compensation for that just yet?
No one has the compensation for Chris Herndon. Maybe the Vikings just decided they're giving us nothing because he's shown nothing over the last 3 years. I'm not sure, but let's jump into the tight end position because I did it very briefly, Clay, but I didn't want to get too much into it. I said that my belief was that Chris Herndon wasn't going to get cut. It wasn't one of those situations. It was more that the Jets said, look, if we can get a 5th round pick here or whatever the compensation ends up being, we have to do that because we don't think Herndon is that big a part of our future. Is that how you viewed the move?
Yeah, I don't think that they were just going to release him if they couldn't find a trade. I mean, there's in no way is Chris Herndon a worse option than Daniel Brown. I know a lot of people are hating on Herndon because of his inconsistencies and his injuries, but he is not a worse player than Daniel Brown. And I think they're just like, you know what, we weren't going to bring him back next year anyway. So if we can get a 5th round pick or a 6th round pick for him, or even just a pick swap, let's get something because he wasn't coming back.
Yeah. No. So Daniel Brown and Ryan Griffin are currently tight ends 2 and 3 on the roster right now. Ryan Griffin's been banged up. Daniel Brown has had the drops and hasn't been a good blocker in his last 2 years in the NFL for the Jets. Obviously, Trayvon Westco is a fullback / tight end hybrid. He can play tight end if you need him to, but realistically, he's not going to line up there too much. Do you think the Jets trade for Zach Ertz? This has been a conversation on Jets Twitter for months now, and now the Jets have traded Herndon. Do you think this is some kind of move to then send that compensation plus a bit more and get Zach Ertz?
I mean, it could be. I mean, I think it was Joe Blewett. I saw he's like, if they were to trade the compensation for Herndon for Zach Ertz, I mean, absolutely do it. That means you're just trading Chris Herndon for Zach Ertz, which I think would be an upgrade. I know that Ertz kind of fell off the cliff a little bit from where he was, but it's still, I think he's still like a good safety blanket for Zach Wilson to have. But I also, and there's a couple names that got released, like Jacob Hollister. I wouldn't be surprised if someone like him came in. I mean, I know he's not like the blocker. I mean, like, I don't think he is. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but he is a good receiver, which is probably something they're going to need from the tight end position. So I wouldn't be surprised to see someone like Jacob Hollister. And then there was a tight end, forget the name, the tight end from Tampa Bay that got released as well. And I know that
his name escapes me too. So. Yeah.
So I don't think it necessarily means that they're going to make a trade. I think it could be someone that they pick up, and who knows, maybe they bring back Yeboah, since the trade has been made. But I think that ship has sailed. I think he'll probably be on the practice squad if he doesn't get claimed.
Yeah, I tend to agree, guys. You're watching U Stadium's Hurricane Relief Live Marathon. Make sure you're supporting not only U Stadium, but all benefits going to the victims of the hurricane relief and Hurricane Ida. So make sure you're checking that out. We're going to be here for the next 6 or 7 hours with U Stadium. You're here with Luke and Clay, the Play Like a Jet live team. You can find us usually on a Wednesday night here at 8:15. Splash is our producer. And then you can catch us going forward through the season, also on a Sunday afternoon or Sunday night for the post-game show after the New York Jets play and win. Clay, I wanted to now move my attention to division rivals and the New England Patriots. They made a big call this afternoon. They got rid of Cam Newton. They cut him, or they waived him. So he is now no longer with the team. Mac Jones is the starter. How you going, Nick? Good to see you. Were you surprised by this? Not that Mac Jones is the starter, but that now they're going with, I don't know, Brian Hoyer as the backup and Cam Newton's just out on the street. Were you surprised by that? I actually think it's a good move that they didn't have that QB controversy. What do you think about the whole way it unfolded?
I think I was surprised just because I just wasn't anticipating it. But looking back on it now, it makes absolute sense. And also, Cam Newton didn't want to be a backup. He doesn't want to be a backup anywhere. So The fact that they released him when they announced Mac Jones as a starter, I mean, it makes sense in hindsight. But I mean, it seemed like Brian Hoyer was going to be gone too, because like isn't he one of the quarterbacks that isn't vaccinated either? And wasn't there like a whole big thing with him too?
Yeah.
So I kind of anticipated him to be cut as well, but it seems like they're rolling with Hoyer as the backup, avoiding that controversy and just letting the rookie take over, which is it's going to be interesting now, especially for the Jets. Now we have Sam Darnold week 1, Mac Jones week 2, and former Jet Teddy Bridgewater week 3. So I think the first 3 weeks will be pretty interesting quarterback matchups, to say the least.
Yeah, they will for sure. Fingers crossed the Jets can take 1 or 2 of those games. Look, I said this a couple of years ago, but hopefully the Jets can actually have maybe not the better quarterback, but the more talented quarterback on the field in numerous games this year, and that's going to be a big help to trying to win games. Clay, looking around the league, you mentioned Jacob Hollister at the tight end position. I know Travis Fulgham has been released by Philadelphia at the wide receiver position. Who are some other names you've heard bouncing around the waiver wire and that have been cut outright that you think could be brought in for the New York Jets? Have any names kind of flashed when you've seen them pop up on your Twitter stream after they've been released?
Yeah, I have a list, and I would try to bring it up, but I don't want to kill our StreamYard and possibly lose you. So I'll just have to memorize. I'll try to memorize some of the names. Excuse me. Jimmy Moreland, he was one of the first cuts today, cornerback from Washington. He's something that interests me. I mean, obviously, as we all know, the cornerback room in New York isn't anything to be too excited about. And he's a guy that's versatile. He can play inside and out. I know he's made some noise in Washington, so it's kind of a surprise that he got cut. But, I mean, I would honestly, like, I'm not really sold on Jason Pinnock. So if they want to move on from him to bring on Moreland, I'd be okay with it. There was Jack Anderson. He was a guy that I really liked coming out of this draft. He was I believe he was a 6th-round pick, maybe a 7th-round pick for the Bills this year. Actually, he might have been UDFA. I can't remember. But either way, I really like him. I think he fits this outside zone scheme that we're going to be running. And the Jets, obviously, they really need interior offensive line depth. Yep. And if he could be the backup center or guard in the future, I mean, obviously that'd be ideal. So those are 2 names that kind of stood out. Jacob Hollister, as you mentioned. And then who is the quarterback? Didn't I mention the quarterback to you and Scott earlier today?
You did. Hold on, let me pull it up because you definitely did. I remember having a laugh about it. You brought up Brett. What's his name? Ripien.
Oh yeah,
how do you say his last name?
Yeah,
Ripien. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean he tore apart this Jets defense last year. So what's that song? Kind of like, hey, maybe we can bring him in. It's got to be better than Mike White, you think, right? Like,
you'd think so. I mean, come on.
For this guy to get cut. I mean, Josh Johnson. I know he was kind of like, I want to say fan favorite. Like out of the 3 backups, he seemed like the fan favorite. Obviously, he was the first one to go. Wait, did we get James Morgan?
I don't think he's been officially released yet, but I think he's going to be released. Let me just double check though, because he may have been cut while I was asleep. But yeah, I don't think all reports from Ian Rappaport and everyone else said that Mike White was going to be the backup here.
Yeah, I saw that he'd be the backup. I didn't say anything about James Morgan staying or being cut.
No, nothing officially about him being cut yet over the last couple of hours. So look, he may still be hanging on, but. Some other names in the quarterback world, you had the Green Bay Packers third-string quarterback who was released. He obviously torched the Jets' primarily first-string defense a couple of weeks ago. Nick Mullen sounds like he's going to sign with the Cleveland Browns on their practice squad, as I mentioned off the top. So that was a blow because I know Robert Saleh liked him. We saw some interactions with Nick Mullins at the Jets' joint practice with the Eagles last week. There was some stuff out there with his live mic kind of episode that the NFL Network and the Jets did, and he was praising Nick Mullins and him being a good dude. So he's not going to be an option for the Jets. So look, Clay, as scary as it sounds, maybe they are going to be rolling with Mike White.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it won't matter if Zach Wilson stays healthy.
Yeah, correct.
I mean, sure, I guess you'd like to have someone that can be a mentor, but like, doesn't mean you have to be a great player to be a good mentor. Like people forget that sometimes. You don't have to be a former Super Bowl MVP like Nick Foles or Joe Flacco or whatever. Like, you don't have to be that to be a good mentor in this league. You just have to. If Mike White knows the playbook, he can and he's good at breaking down film. Really, that's all they need, as long as Zach Wilson stays healthy, of course. So if he can provide that, which I'm assuming he can, if they haven't brought in anyone. Like the fact that Josh Johnson was the only guy that brought in this offseason makes me think that Mike White is actually pretty good at that part.
Yeah.
Am I
Sounds like that might be the
now?
case. No, I mean, all signs point to it, right? I mean, look, I understand that they feel really confident in their coaching staff. Unfortunately, Greg Knapp had the terrible accident and he passed away, and that was a huge blow to the NFL community as a whole. It was a tragedy, but that's a blow to the New York Jets. But they have a ton of faith in the coaching staff and their ability to transfer the knowledge. They're not looking for a vet to do that. They're just looking for a guy to bounce ideas off him that's deep in the playbook. And you can tell Robert Saleh is invested in these players, whether at the quarterback position or the edge position or wherever. And he likes guys who have been here, have knowledge of the scheme. And that's why I'm intrigued to say, I'm not sure, what direction they're going to go or if they're going to bring in a backup at all. So you're watching U Stadium's Hurricane Relief Live Marathon. Make sure you're doing everything you can to support us. So I'm here with Clay, my co-host on Play Like a Jet Live. And Clay, another position I was intrigued by was the safety position, which I kind of mentioned off the top. Obviously, the Jets have got Ashton Davis and Neesman. Look like they're both going to make the roster. But we're not deep there, and I think Neesman is replaceable. What do you think about a couple of these names? Clinton-Dix has been really good for San Francisco. I think he's been playing with in the preseason. He was released. And then Carl Joseph was released by the Las Vegas Raiders. Do you have interest in either Clinton-Dix or Carl Joseph?
I mean, I don't really know if Carl Joseph is needed. I think I'd rather, if we're going to bring in depth at safety, I'd rather get a guy that can kind of play more deep, whereas Joseph he's kind of like a thumper.
Yeah.
And I know he has a great name, and he's been around the league for a while, but I don't really know if he really brings that either. I think it'd be more of a name thing than anything else with either of those guys. But I mean, I don't know much about him outside of a couple Ravens fans that really like him, and liking him was Nigel Warrior. I know he was cut from their team today. Just obviously, as we know, their secondary is just completely loaded, so they had to get rid of someone. And Nigel Warrior would be a guy that'd be interested in, but I don't know much about him outside of they just have too many bodies in that secondary. But I mean, I would think they would have to bring in someone unless they like Neesman. Obviously, we haven't really gotten much to see out of him in just the 3 preseason games. And what's going on with Davis? I mean, I know it seems like they're taking him off the PUP list, right?
Yeah, sounds like he was taken off the PUP list yesterday.
But how long is he actually going to miss if he's off the PUP?
Yeah, well, we're going to see because he hasn't done anything.
4 games. I mean, you might still have to bring in another guy, but I'm keeping an eye on. I kept an eye on, or I'm keeping an eye on, were Caden Stearns and Jamar Johnson, both rookies this year, and they were 5th and 6th on the Broncos' unofficial depth chart a couple weeks ago. I don't know if they're still 5th and 6th. Obviously, then there's no 5th and 6th safeties on the team anymore. But if one of those, I'm not exactly sure what happened with the Broncos today, since I haven't really been able to pay attention the last couple hours.
Indeed, there's some teams like that, the Broncos, Washington football team, some of these teams with deeper secondaries. They're the ones to watch when you're looking for the New York Jets and who may be available on the waiver wire. You already mentioned a guy that intrigued me, Clay. He was one of the first cuts, as you mentioned. That's Jimmy Moreland. I know he has versatility to play both inside and outside. So, look, if the Jets think he's more primarily a slot guy, he's not a fit here because, as we all know, this is Play Like a Jet Live is the official Michael Carter II show. Javelin Guidry's had a really good preseason as well. So if they view Jimmy Moreland as a slot corner, then he's probably not going to be added here. But if they do view him as being able to play on the outside, despite being 5'10", 180 pounds or whatever his build is, then he's definitely a name worth bringing in because, as you mentioned, it's hard to have a ton of faith in anyone in the Jets secondary. And one of the guys that survived so far, Clay, I think there's still 8 corners on the roster, unless I've missed any cuts. But Isaiah Dunn and Jason Pinnock are both on the roster. Do you anticipate one of those guys getting the boot before, everything's said and done in a couple of days? I might have lost Clay. I think we've lost him. Wait, that's okay. I think we're back. There you are. Have I got you? All right, cool. We're talking Pinnock and Dunn. Do you think one of those guys will get cut? A few technical issues here on U Stadium's Hurricane Relief Live Marathon. You're here with the team from Play Like a Jet Live, usually on a Wednesday night, 8:15. It's Luke and Clay with you. Make sure you do everything you can to donate to the U Stadium Linktree, links down below. There's a ton of ways you can support us. Make sure you're also subscribing to the U Stadium Family YouTube channel. Follow them on Twitter, everything like that. Make sure you're supporting not just our show, but all the other great shows that U Stadium usually have on their channel. You've got things like the 49ers Hour. You've got Timeout with Nick Bree and also Frankie. So make sure you're checking out all the programs. The Sports Desk with Splash, who produces our show. Make sure you check them all out. I think we've got Clay again. Have you got me, Clay? No, he's not there. That's okay. We'll keep going. Right now, we're talking about the corner position for the New York Jets. Right now, the Jets are still carrying 8 corners. One of those is Hardy, who is the special teams ace, who they got from the New Orleans Saints. He's going to be on the roster, but he isn't going to play the corner position. He's purely a special teamer, so it's tough to count him as a corner on the roster. But outside of that, the Jets still do have Jason Pinnock. They still have Isaiah Dunn, both on the roster. I was of the opinion that one of those guys may be released or waived and then trying to be snuck onto the practice squad. Isaiah Dunn was a fan favorite, but also a coaching favorite. The staff really liked what they saw from him early in the preseason. He missed the first preseason game and then started against the Green Bay Packers. And, man, he really struggled. He was picked on by the Packers' second-string offense who started that game for them. Had numerous times they kind of mossed him and went over the top. So that was an issue for him. And then when he went into the third preseason game against the Eagles, it didn't get any easier. He let up a touchdown. There were numerous catches he had with people just, again, out jumping him at the catch point. I'm intrigued to see if the Jets coaching staff has more faith in him than maybe they should, because based on what we've seen, I don't think he should be on this roster right now. And when the waiver wire pickups start coming through, especially if the Jets get Moreland or someone at the corner position, I don't think there's going to be a spot here. Look, I could be wrong, and they could get rid of Pinnock. They could carry both and have 8 corners. I already mentioned Javelin Guidry and Michael Carter both need to be on this football team. You've got Bryce Hall and Bless Austin who will start for the Jets. And right now, Brandon Eccles appears to be the number 1 backup. He was injured in that Philadelphia game. He hurt his shoulder. I believe it was Hamza Nasruddin who came in and actually hit him in the shoulder trying to make a tackle. But Eccles is healthy. And it appears that he will be good to go in week 1, Robert Saleh said yesterday. And on the whole, he sounded optimistic about the Jets. And I'm optimistic too now because it sounds like Clay's back. Clay, we're talking Jason Pinnock, we're talking Eccles and Isaiah Dunn more specifically. Surprised that none of them have been cut yet. Do you think they're going to carry all 8 of these corners, and do you think one of them should go?
There's no way. I mean, I feel like there's no possible way to keep 8 cornerbacks. Obviously, we still have a lot more cuts to even go through because there's no way they've gotten down to 50, even 60. I think at this point, I feel like there's only been like maybe 15 names cut. So no, I don't think they'll carry 8 corners. I think I know they really like Isaiah Dunn, but do they like him more than a guy that they drafted over him in Pinnock? I don't know if they actually go that route, especially because Dunn has really underperformed these last few weeks in the preseason. So I think they'll end up keeping Pinnock over Dunn. I gotta go with Pinnock. I'm going back and forth, but I think it'd be him just because they did draft him. They have 4 years on him, whereas like Dunn, I know his contract's pretty much guaranteed for this year, but it's what, $400,000? I think they can think they can
Yeah.
cut bait with 400,000.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about special teams a little bit. It appears that Braxton Berrios is going to make the roster. He'll be the punt returner. Kick return will probably be a bit of a shared role. We've seen a number of guys do it, from Michael Carter to Braxton Berrios. Vincent Smith did a little bit, but he's obviously been waived by the Jets. The spot I want to focus on, though, Clay, is the kicking spot. Matt Amendola has been really good in the preseason. And there's a big asterisk there because they're not really live bullets. The kicks don't count. Your job's somewhat on the line, but really, it's not as high tension a kick than you're going to see in the regular season. So do you think Matt Amendola has showed enough, or do you think the Jets should still be looking to the Tampa Bay kicking contest and Ryan Suckup and Borregales, or however I say his name? I always make the mistake with the kicker who was out of the University of Miami. Do you think they still should bring in one of those guys?
I mean, I don't know. Amendola's look nice. I mean, I know a couple of his kicks like barely snuck in, but this kid's got a boot. He has an absolute cannon of a leg, which is very interesting. But they got to keep an eye on the Tampa Bay kicking situation. Whether or not they actually want to go through with it, that's another story. But you got to keep an eye on it. And then even the backup kicker for Baltimore that just got cut today. I know the last time they had a backup kicker that people like didn't really work out too well, but it's still a guy that people actually like. So I think ultimately, unless there's another kicker that got really said, I'm not sure about. I mean, hey, Nick Folk just got cut, so maybe he comes back.
Yeah.
No, but I think ultimately it'll be one of those three guys. But I feel like you can't even rule out Nick Folk because he had been around for a while, and I think he was actually pretty good for the Patriots last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. He was good. It's going to be interesting to see what they do, because the Jets have, since we just mentioned Nick Folk, since he hasn't been on the roster, the Jets have struggled. No matter who they've brought in, it's been an absolute punish, really, watching this, whether it's Vidvik or a number of guys. So, look,
we
Sam
had a Pro Bowl season.
Look, we did have a Pro Bowl season. Then he went and
Jason
kicked
Myers
in Seattle and did a pretty good job over there, did Jason Myers. So I guess it's not all doom and gloom. Brant Boyer on the rest of the special teams unit has done a good job, but it's obviously difficult to control a kicking position. That's more something Joe Douglas and his staff just have to get right. So if Splash was here, I know he'd suggest giving the Vikings a fifth-round pick for their backup kicker. That's always his suggestion for the Jets. But look, hopefully Amendola can start the year well. It'd be nice to just have an unknown kicker come in and make 85-90% of kicks of the season and just have it settled. It hasn't happened for the Jets in the last 3 or 4 years. That would be incredible. So fingers crossed that the former Oklahoma State product, Matt Amendola, who is absolutely ripped, by the way. If you haven't seen Matt Amendola, make sure you go and check out Twitter, because that dude is built like a linebacker, a little bit like Braden Mann. Yeah, a little bit like Braden Mann, who may be the best tackler on the Jets team. But Clay, the last couple of years have been tough overall for the Jets. Obviously, we've lived it. They went 7-9 in 2019. They went 2-14 last year. The changes for this roster have been simply incredible. We have gone from Sam Darnold at quarterback, Leonard Williams, all those guys who were in the premiere photo. I'm sure everyone has seen floating around on Twitter those pictures with the big red crosses through them as they went down one by one. I think today we finally achieved utopia, and I think everyone from that photo is gone, which is just incredible when you think about it. The turnover on this roster, look, Joe Douglas is to be commended, because even though the results haven't been there yet, this roster is in a much better place than it was 2 years ago. How do you feel about the overall direction of the Jets right now?
Well, I actually, sticking with that picture real quick, that was 2.5 years ago. Not even 2.5 years ago. And all, 6, 7 players? Yeah. They're all gone, which is insane to think about. And then just in total, there's only 3 players. That's if Shepard didn't get cut today.
Yeah.
They only have 3 players from that were drafted from 2018 or earlier that are still on the roster. Marcus May, Nathan Shepard, and Foley Fatukasi. So the fact that there's been that big of an overhaul with this front office is actually just great, because obviously the team has not been very good lately. So no, I'm excited for the outlook of this team. They're really young. They need to keep. They need to hope that these players can actually fulfill their potential. At least some of them. Obviously, not all of them are going to be what we hope. But if you can just hit on a couple mid-round picks, like every year or so, or every couple of years, I should say, I think that'd be huge for this roster. And as you know, like me and you both really like a couple of these mid-round picks that we took. Obviously, Michael Carter, the running back, Michael Carter, the second. I think we're both pretty excited about Hamza Nasruddin. So I think we are starting to build something here, but it's going to take a couple years. We can't expect a team that just went 2-14 last year to make the playoffs this year just because we got Robert Saleh instead of Adam Gase. I mean, this team is still like on the lower end in the league, and people have to acknowledge it. But just hope for progression. That's all we need to see this year. Is just see progression, not even record-wise. Well, yes, record-wise, because we only won 2 games. But It doesn't need to be like a 7-8 win season. Don't get blown out. Stay competitive in every single game. And I think that like a Robert Saleh-led team, and the way that they're and Joe in a Joe Douglas-led front office, I think that's what we're going to do in 2021. And I'm very excited to see.
Yeah, I said to Chris Walker yesterday, who's one of the co-owners of Play Like a Jet, I joked with him that, look, if the Jets go 0-17, I don't care as long as the Jets put up 25 points per game on offense. This season is about Zach Wilson. Obviously, look, there's not a lot of truth in that. Obviously, you want to see the Jets win football games. But if the offense progresses and Zach Wilson plays at a high level, that's what you're going to see. I'm understanding that the defense is going to struggle. Clay, on our show on Wednesday night, we're going to preview it. So we're Wednesday in Australia now. So tomorrow night, we're going to be on Play Like a Jet live with U Stadium. We're going to obviously preview the whole of the season, talk about some projections for players and records and all that kind of thing. So I'm not going to touch on too much of that now. But how are you feeling about the Carolina Panthers game? Because I got in an argument, well, I wasn't trying to, but on Twitter yesterday, there was a clip of DJ Moore and Sam Darnold connecting, and the connection and chemistry is there for those two guys. And it was 6 passes in the preseason that traveled on average at 2.8 air yards in the air. And I was like, are you kidding me? Sam Darnold's not going to get the best out of DJ Moore. How do you think the Panthers offense matches up against this Jets defense? Are you really worried about how that matchup's going to unfold?
All right, I kind of caught the end of it there, so I'm going to ride with it. So, I mean, obviously the Panthers have some kind of high profile weapons: Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Terrace Marshall. He's got some speed on the outside. So they got some weapons, and the Jets defense isn't overly equipped to defend it, especially when you don't have Carl Lawson getting to the quarterback. But the Panthers' offensive line is not good. They're just not. So I'm curious to see if we can get enough penetration on the interior, especially with Quinn Williams. And Foley looked really good in the last game.
He did.
Granted, it was against backups, but if he could take another step forward as a pass rusher, that's really going to help out this defense in general. So, yeah, I don't know if we'll be able to hold them to 2 touchdowns or whatever it may be that people are hoping for, but if we can keep it to 20, 23 points, 24 points, I think that's acceptable. At least for my standards.
Yeah.
Just because I still know the secondary is really bad. We don't have a pass rush on the outside. I should say like a really good pass rush. So like that's fine by me. But if they're scoring 24, we got 25. That's all.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's a big game to win. You just kind of prefaced it before I go into it. You're watching U Stadium's Hurricane Relief Live Marathon. Make sure you're supporting the victims of Hurricane Ida. Obviously, it's been a horrible time for the residents of Louisiana, all that Gulf region down in America. So make sure you're supporting them any way you can. Donating, the link is down below that you can see just down here. So make sure you're donating with the Linktree Stadium, U Stadium link. U Stadium's doing an incredible job on this marathon stream. We're going to be here for 12 hours in total. There's still 5 or 6 hours left to go as we head down and raise money for the hurricane victims. So make sure you're supporting any way you can. And thanks for tuning in as Luke and Clay are with you. The Play Like a Jet team will be live on Wednesday nights at 8:15. You can catch us tomorrow with our producer Splash. We'll be here at 8:15 Eastern time. So Clay, a move we haven't touched on yet since we shot last week not Carl Lawson. I'm going to do this all season. Was Shaq Lawson, who was brought in by the Jets in return for the 6th round pick that the Jets acquired from the 49ers in the Jordan Willis trade. I did a film breakdown on Shaq Lawson. I think it's important the Jets brought in an NFL quality player, and while he's not a world beater, he can play 50 to 60% of snaps on the outside. He takes pressure off Bryce Huff, and he doesn't force you to play John Franklin Myers on the outside as much. What did you think about the move for Shaq Lawson?
All right, again, I lost you in the beginning, but I caught the end. So, no, I actually do like the trade. I mean, I know we spoke about it with DJ the other day. Like, I was kind of on the side where I didn't think that we needed to make a trade for an edge rusher, just because I didn't know if there's any good names that they could have brought in at this point, and probably could have gotten a couple guys from the waiver wire, which I'm sure we'll find out all the names in just a couple hours once the NFL gets its things once they get their things together. So I was kind of on that team, but the fact that now we can look at it like, all right, it was Jordan Willis for Shaq Lawson, I'm okay with it. Like, once you look at it that way, I'm okay with it, just because Lawson, no, he's not a world beater. He's not Carl Lawson, but he's a guy that can provide some much needed depth on the edge, and he's actually not that bad of a pass rusher, especially when he's in a limited role. I'm sure he'll flourish even more. And excuse me, he might fill the, I guess, I know people are gonna say like he's filling the Vinny Curry role just because no one can replace Carl Lawson. Like, if he does, I guess, take the Carl Lawson role, he's gonna be in a situation where he's pinning his ears back and going. He's not playing the run. He's going for the quarterback. Like, and if that's their plan with him, which we obviously have no idea what their plan is with him, then he might, like I said, he might be able to flourish even more. So I'm curious to see what happens. I mean, obviously they cut Hamilcar Rashid, one of those 3 last names. They got to be right. And actually, I don't think I saw Jabari Zuniga's name pop up today, so he might be as well.
Man, that was tough. I was looking for that name. When I woke up, I was scrolling my timeline trying to find where Zuniga's name was, telling me he'd been cut. Look, he may just be placed on the PUP list. It's obviously going to be a numbers game. I'm sure the Jets are going to wait until they would have waited to the last minute. Obviously, 4 p.m. Eastern, all moves had to be made, and the 53 had to be down. So we're going to get some more reports coming in and trickling through. But it's important for people to remember that isn't the final roster. The waiver order selections and the waiver wire pickups are going to come through tomorrow once the NFL catches up there and they're awarded to the teams. And then there still is an opportunity for trades to be made. So keep an eye out for that. Ben Mason is a name, Clay, that the Jets fans liked in the preseason, in the draft, draft season was Ben Mason's season, and he was the fullback out of Michigan. He's been released by the Baltimore Ravens Splashes team. Do you think they look to pick him up, or do you think Trayvon Wesco showed enough? Because as I've mentioned a few times, Robert Saleh seems to like the guys he has here and speaks positively of them.
Yeah, it does seem that they do like Wesco. I mean, I really liked Ben Mason. I was kind of hoping that they would bring him in because I obviously during the draft we kind of expected that they would want a fullback for this offense. So that was a guy that I kind of had my eye on. But I don't know. That's tough. I would like for them to go after him just because I think Wesco's on this. This is this is 3rd year. So he's still got another year after this on his deal. So maybe because of that they stick with Wesco. But I don't know. I think I would like Mason, but I have no idea how he's performed this preseason.
Clay, we were just talking earlier about quarterbacks and about the New England Patriots and how they cut Cam Newton. Interestingly enough, U Stadium account, so our account here over at U Stadium, Nick Sparno leads that. They just released Brian Hoyer too. So I have no idea what they're doing. Maybe they're going to release Mac Jones next. I'm not sure. Maybe they're going for some kind of new Wildcat offense, but you'll see it flashing up on the screen now. Thanks to Jack for doing that. But U Stadium has just broken that the Brian Hoyer has been released by the New England Patriots. So I'm really intrigued to see whether they have a trade lined up. Obviously, they can't be super confident about the waiver order yet because you're not sure how that's going to happen. But the Patriots have officially released Brian Hoyer. I don't want to get into a political discussion or anything like that, but it does sound like Bill Belichick is getting rid of these quarterbacks because they didn't want to be vaccinated. And we've seen with Carson Wentz in Indianapolis that non-vaccinated players, especially at the quarterback position, it's a huge loss if you lose them. A huge thank you to the Option Podcast. They just donated $7 and said, "Go Jets." We appreciate you. Thanks so much for supporting U Stadium, for supporting the hurricane relief victims and everything that U Stadium is doing here. So a big shout out to the Option Podcast. Make sure you're following all of their stuff. They do great work. So appreciate you guys supporting U Stadium and everything we're doing here with the hurricane relief. So big shout out to you guys. Clay, what are your thoughts on the Brian Hoyer news though?
Yeah. Did they have a fourth quarterback?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean,
don't think so.
If they did, then even if they did, I think they're going to bring in another quarterback, whether it's one that got released. Maybe they could trade for Nick Foles. Who knows? I mean, I'm trying to think about who that other quarterback could possibly be on that roster to lead them to release Hoyer and Newton. But maybe it was just because they didn't want a quarterback that wasn't vaccinated, because God forbid Mac Jones goes down for them, then they could potentially be out of a quarterback just because the other guy wasn't vaccinated and he had close contact with someone.
Yeah.
So I guess, I mean, it makes sense from that standpoint. You want to kind of take out every possible option of a player going down off your team. So I guess it makes sense. But interesting to say the least.
Yeah, Ian Rappaport did just say that there's a good chance that he ends up back in New England. For those who aren't familiar with the waivers, I mentioned at the top, players who have 4 years of service don't go through waivers. They automatically clear waivers, and you have to negotiate with those players straight up. So Brian Hoyer, it's not like the Jets can just claim him off waivers. The Patriots will have an opportunity to get him back. This could just be a juggling act for their numbers because, look, obviously they're not going to carry one quarterback. No one in NFL history has ever done that. So that either Hoyer will be back, which is a possibility, or maybe they do look at Nick Foles or someone else who's A, vaccinated, and B, maybe a little younger and can still offer them a veteran presence for Mac Jones. Interesting to see. But in general, Clay, this AFC East is young at the quarterback position. Josh Allen is the veteran at 25 years of age. Then you've got obviously Mac Jones and Zach Wilson in their first NFL seasons. And then you've got Tua in his second year. So you see down the bottom of the screen, per Elias, it's just the last time that all 4 starting quarterbacks in the division were 25 years or younger, Clay. It was in 1973, which is just incredible. The young division here with the AFC East, there's an opportunity for the Jets. There's an opportunity for all these teams.
Yeah, it's actually very exciting to see how young this division is at quarterback. And Josh Allen's the oldest one at 25, which means I would be the oldest one if I was a quarterback in the AFC East, which doesn't quite make me feel good. But no, it's interesting. He's 25 and 23, 22, and 22 between the 4 quarterbacks. So yeah, I mean, obviously the Bills are probably the best for right now, especially because Josh Allen is the best quarterback on paper. Granted, we still don't exactly know what Mac Jones and Zach Wilson are going to be. We'd like to think that Zach Wilson will be better than Josh Allen in day one, but I don't think that's going to happen just because Josh Allen was actually second in MVP votes last year. But no, yeah, it's very interesting. It's actually, it's just nice to see. I think the AFC East is built pretty well right now in terms at the quarterback position, and obviously this can all change in the next couple minutes, next couple hours, next weeks, months, if the Dolphins do end up trading for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, just a reminder, everyone, you're watching U Stadium's Hurricane Relief Live Marathon, supporting and raising money for the victims of Hurricane Ida. So make sure you support U Stadium, everything that Nick, Frankie, Splash, and everyone over at U Stadium are doing. Make sure you're checking out all of their content on YouTube throughout the week, also over on Twitter, on Instagram, and everywhere you can find their social media content. Clay, talking about the quarterback position, and this division has been dominated by Tom Brady for a decade. Obviously, it was before he left in free agency and went to Tampa Bay. I'm with you. I'm so excited by the fact that this year, look, Buffalo are heavy favorites, and you can understand why. Josh Allen was fantastic last year, especially after the first 2 seasons. But it's nice to have a somewhat open division and not feel like it's, case closed before the year, because who knows? New England could go on a run. Their offensive line is really good, and they've got a couple of really good running backs, and they can pound the rock. Miami's got a nice stable of receivers. Look, there's some injury risks there with Waddle, with Will Fuller, who's also suspended. But it's just a nice division to be a part of, because I feel like right now it's young, not just at the quarterback position, but on the whole. But it's also really deep. I think the AFC East is going to go from the AFC least, so to speak, to actually a really competitive division the next 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit it with Tom Brady really just having a firm grasp on this division where every year in, year out, Patriots for the favorites, Patriots for the favorite.
Yeah.
And I think the last one is the Patriots are the favorite. But no, I think, it's just good to kind of have some hope, and actually I actually really had that hope, not just fake hope, like I had back in 2010 and 11, following our AFC Championship runs. This is legitimate hope where, maybe not this year. Like I said, I don't expect to make the playoffs this year. I don't expect to be in playoff contention. But I think after this year, if things progress the way that we expect them to, I think this division is up for grabs. I mean, you obviously the Bills could continue to get better as well. It's not out of the realm of possibility. But I think the Jets are going to – I think they're what's the word I'm looking for? I guess their projection, in the immediate short term, is a lot higher than the Bills. I did not word that right. I think
the trajectory is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah. Obviously, it's a lot higher because the Bills are already pretty high up. So I think we're going to catch up to them a lot quicker than they're going to catch up to the Chiefs. If that makes more sense.
No, I'm with you
I think
for
the
sure.
Chiefs are still taking the AFC.
Yeah. A little bit more breaking news. My Sports Update, who you can follow on Twitter, they just said that Everson Griffin's been released, defensive end from Minnesota. I'm not sure if he has anything left. He's nearly 34 years of age. He was fairly poor and a little banged up last year. But it's another name to watch because Robert Saleh, he loves edge talent. The Bills also just released, or they waived Jake Fromm. So State Farm.
And Davis Webb.
I know. So there's a lot of disappointing quarterbacks that are out there on the waiver wire. But focusing on Everson Griffin and the edge position, they obviously got Shaq Lawson. Everson Griffin won't cost anything because he's a free agent now. Do you think that's a move they'll look to bring in? Do you think they'll double down on edge? What do you think Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas do in regards to Everson Griffin?
He was in free agency this entire offseason until 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So I'd be shocked if the Jets brought him in. I know, granted, we lost. Well, actually, he was probably signed after Carl Lawson injury.
Possibly, yeah.
And maybe even after the Vinny Curry just happened last week. So
yeah.
I mean, I don't think Everson Griffin will be a Jet this year. I think if it was going to happen, it would have happened weeks or months ago, not 2 days or a week before the season.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've just got a list of all the players who have been cut by the New York Jets. So Ryan Griffin is among the Jets' final cuts. So the tight end room has another casualty. There's got to be a move coming here. I think Zach Ertz could be a New York Jet. I mean, they're not going to go into the season with Daniel Brown, who may be the worst player of all time at the tight end position. They can't roll with him and Tyler Kroft, who also has quite an injury history. You'd have to think. I'm just scanning the list now to see if we've missed anyone. Ronnie Blair was released. Ronald Blair. He's the guy that was brought in with the ACL from San Francisco in 2019. He's been released as well. Elijah Campbell. Noah Dawkins was a guy that our friend from Play Like a Jet Live, DJ BN Ami, has just posted it for us. So he's got a list of all the released players that the Jets have had. And a name that stood out to me there, Clay, is Noah Dawkins, the linebacker. He's actually seen some time. And the linebacker room is paper thin. We obviously lost Davis for the first 6 games of the season. He's on the PUP list. So he was released as well. Grant Herndon was released. Yeah, James Morgan was released. I'm trying to think if there's any other names. DJ Montgomery, we obviously expected, even though he had a good camp. David Moore, the offensive lineman that Carolina released.
I'm sorry, I got to cut you off. We have one tight end on our roster.
Yeah, one and a fullback. That's it.
Yeah, I didn't see.
They cut Dan Brown.
Got cut too. Zuniga made the team,
which is crazy. Look, he's getting put on PUP surely or something. Come on, I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, Neesman got cut too.
Yeah, well, that's safety. I'm telling you, they're going to bring in a safety. They have to.
Yeah, dude, I'm so curious to see what's going on with the Broncos. And if one of those safeties can break free, that'd be huge. It's linebacker too. They're going to have to bring in a linebacker.
One we haven't mentioned that yesterday I didn't do a prediction because what's the point of me trying to guess what someone else is doing? I did what I would do. They also released Tanzel Smart, who look, he's had a really good preseason, and I thought he was a chance to stick around. Look, interior defensive line is the best spot on the Jets roster, but I thought he could stick around because Robert Saleh loves a rotation. There's not many defensive ends that play. Kyle Phillips is on the PUP list. He's not going to start. Hamilcar Rashad, he's not going to be on the active roster either, but he's been released too. Yeah,
I'm not surprised that he's cut, but I thought he had a chance to make it. And actually, one thing that is popping out right now, speaking of the defensive line, Nathan Shepard and Jonathan Marshall both made the team.
Yeah, I'm happy for Jonathan Marshall. I like to see the youth there. I think that's a good move.
Yeah, and also they are keeping 8 defensive cornerbacks at this moment.
Which is, look, I wonder if that's because they don't think that, what's the safety's name? Ashton Davis can play week 1. Maybe Michael Carter seems to see some time at safety, not on the field, but as that backup safety if they need someone to shift. Obviously, Javelin Guidry can then man the slot. So I wonder if that's part of the move. I don't think they're going to carry 8 of these guys. My philosophy with roster building, I'm not sure what yours is, Clay. Obviously, look, we don't do this for a living, but you want to keep more players from positions which you're deep on the roster rather than feeling insecure about the guys you have at corner. So you keep multiple of those. Is that kind of how you view it as well?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And also, the final cuts are here, but there is no way they're carrying 8 corners and 1 tight end. There's no way. Yeah. I even think that they can cut one of the defensive linemen. I think it's possible to cut one of the defensive linemen. Maybe one of the receivers because they're carrying 7. Maybe they don't go in with 7. There's still moves to be made. Because they have to get a tight end, at least 2 tight ends, and a linebacker. Exactly. And a safety. Definitely. So things are going to move around. Whether it's trade, most likely just free agency. But this is very interesting. I got quite a few of them wrong, to be honest.
Yeah, there are definitely some surprises. One we did just mention, I'm happy Jonathan Marshall was on the team. Good to see that Pinnock survived as well. I was a little bit worried that they'd fall in love with Isaiah Dunn and that he may be on the outside, as we mentioned, but it's good to see him on the roster at this stage. Clay, I don't think you were with me at the time, but I was talking about Brandon Eccles being healthy. Robert Saleh said yesterday he looked good to go. So that's going to be exciting. But guys, we're about to hit 8 o'clock in my time in Australia. So it's going to be 6 p.m. Eastern over in the US. That's about it for myself and Clay. We're going to have a ton more to talk about. As you can tell, we're both excited looking at these names, looking at the roster protection. You can catch us tomorrow night on Play Like a Jet Live, hosted by U Stadium over here right now where you're watching, whether it be Twitch, YouTube, wherever you find us. Make sure you're there tomorrow night at 8:15 p.m. Eastern, and make sure you're supporting U Stadium's Hurricane Relief Live Marathon. Donations below. We've got the next segment coming on now. Clay, appreciate you battling through the car and everything that's happening. I can't wait to talk about this stuff tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I'm excited, man. And also by tomorrow, we'll know who they claimed on the waiver wire. Yep. So we'll have a lot to talk about for sure.
Yeah, can't wait, guys. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you're donating. Do everything you can to support the area, the Gulf Coast, and everyone in Louisiana who's had a real tough go of it over the last decade and a half with hurricanes. Support U Stadium. Support Play Like a Jet Live. Thank you, and we will catch you tomorrow night at 8:15 p.m.